Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Twisted Wrister podcast. This is episode number 6. We're actually doing a simulcast right now. So we're doing this through YouTube. We're going to upload this to Spotify and also on Rumble as well. So you can find us on those platforms. My goodness, there was quite a lot of action on Tuesday night, October 17th. There were a total of 9 games, but a lot of great storylines from those games. So we have so many different topics to recap here. We've got the Edmonton Oilers finally breaking out of their slump, and some history was made there. We had a crazy McDavid goal once again. The Avalanche making history of their own against the Seattle Kraken, and Cale Makar reaching a milestone that not even Bobby Orr could reach as quickly. We'll touch on that. Marc Andre Fleury, a Quebec native, getting all the love from the Montreal fans in possibly his last home game in Montreal for his career. Pierre-Luc Dubois returned to Winnipeg, now as a member of the Los Angeles Kings, and he certainly did get on the board that night. I actually forgot to make this a public stream on YouTube, so just don't mind me while I toggle that. We'll also touch on the Golden Knights. They're off to a red hot start so far. Patrick Kane, Frank Saravalli had a little bit of an update there regarding where he could possibly sign as he gets back to full form following his knee surgery. A couple other injuries to report on, and a wee preview for tonight's NHL game. So we've got a lot going on. And for those of you who are new here, we do cover the NHL in its entirety, season by season, and of course in the off season as well. So no matter who you cheer for, we want to have you here because we're a great community of fans. And if you do like great hockey communities such as ours, we do encourage you to follow us on Discord. So you can see all of that information in the video or podcast description. All right. So we're just about ready to get going with our first topic here, and that is going to be the Edmonton Oilers. I did have the pleasure of watching this game last night, and man, the Oilers did break out of their slump, certainly. They, of course, started the season 0-2, getting rolled by the Vancouver Canucks, but even though they gave up 12 goals there, they were sharp against the Nashville Predators going on the road there to Bridgestone Arena. I've been to a game there myself. Great place to watch some hockey. And yeah, they beat the Predators by a 6-1 score. And this one was over before the first intermission. So you had everybody, all the big names showing up for the most part for the Edmonton Oilers. And the first one that we want to talk about here is Leon Draisaitl, as he sets a milestone for Oilers franchise history with his 127th and later on his 128th power play goal. So he lit the lamp first, and I've got a little clip of that to share with you right here. So here's Draisaitl's first goal.
Draisaitl, his next power play goal will set a team record. Slap pass over to Nugent Hopkins, side of the net. What-timer score, and there it is!
Right there. So Hyman with the one-touch pass from down low, and then Draisaitl added his second power play goal later on. He passes Glenn Anderson for the all-time mark for Edmonton Oilers. Wayne Gretzky was just behind him, one power play goal behind him. But now the new mark is 128, and Draisaitl is going to score a lot more power play goals, especially with this unit out there for the Edmonton Oilers. We also had a crazy Connor McDavid goal, as you'll see right here. McDavid just finding about every single way to score in the NHL these days. Check out what McJesus did last night.
You can never really be prepared for this, but maybe he is the most. He goes down, spinorama, pops back up, and somehow that puck was loose.
Yeah, it takes a spill, spins around, and does a little shake and bake on Saros for another goal. And for those of you just joining us on YouTube, hello. Thank you so much for being here. This is a live recording of the Twisted Wrister podcast, so I will take some questions if you have them. We'll probably do some questions mid-podcast and also toward the end. So, yeah, feel free to let me know if there's anything else you want me to weigh in on. We have a lot of topics to discuss here. And right now we're, of course, starting off with the Edmonton Oilers. So a little bit of a different format for the Twisters out there. But either way, I'm thrilled that you decided to tune in, guys. So, yeah, Oilers' first win of the year. Jack Campbell looked excellent last night, saving 42 of 43 shots. Really, the game seemed out of reach when the Oilers had that 4-0 lead. And then the Predators get a power play goal to start the second period. What happens after that? Well, the Oilers get a power play of their own. So that's when Draisaitl had his second one. But yeah, Campbell looked excellent. This is maybe some might say his best game as an Oiler so far. And he had, saved 42 out of 43 shots, had 2.64 goals saved above average in that game alone. Although I thought that the Oilers did a decent job of, keeping the Predators out of the crease. And actually, Campbell stopped 25 slot shots. So there were still some good opportunities from Nashville. But they're back to the drawing board after Campbell had them figured out. Also, Matthias Ekholm was honored by the Predators and the Predators faithful after over a decade with that organization. I didn't know he had been there for quite that long, but certainly he's up there with some of the greats who've played that position for them, going back to the days of Shea Weber and, of course, the captain now, Roman Josi, and don't forget Kimmo Timonen, among some others. All right, so that's going to conclude that segment here. All right, the next the next game I want to talk about is the Colorado Avalanche. We got a decent amount of Oilers fans on this channel, watching my stuff, and a lot of Avalanche fans as well. So in this game here between the Colorado Avalanche and the Seattle Kraken, we had Cale Makar becoming the fastest defenseman in NHL history to reach 250 points. So he did that in his 241st NHL game. Bobby Orr had the previous mark. He did that in his 247th game. But, I mean, mind you, Orr did get a bit of a head start in the NHL. He ended up with six straight seasons of over 100 points, and he got his first 100-point season when he was just 21 years old. But now Cale Makar actually reaching this milestone and doing so at over a point-per-game level in still what is a fairly young career for him. He already has a Norris Trophy. He already has a Stanley Cup, and he's going to go down as maybe, who knows, maybe even the best defenseman in this era. I think he does play his position fairly well from what I've seen. Of course, though, we love to see what he can do as a skater with his shot. Got a goal in the previous game against the San Jose Sharks, and he assisted on this Logan O'Connor shorthanded goal, which ultimately was the game winner for Colorado.
Schwartz shielding on Taves, who's able to fight that free to Makar. Coming up on 40 seconds to go. The Avalanche clear. O'Connor's got it. Short-handed. Scores!
So, there Makar was able to fire it off the boards. It rimmed all the way down to O'Connor, who also got in a fight that game. He almost had himself a Gordie Howe hat trick. And the Avalanche, once again, just dominating in their third game now on the season. They go to 3-0. They beat the Seattle Kraken by a score of 4-1. We'll touch on the Kraken in just a second here, but the Avalanche, we're not done here. The Avalanche actually set a NHL record, or tied an NHL record, for the most road wins. So that was their 14th straight road win going back to last season, and they tied the 06-07 Buffalo Sabres with that accomplishment. So it's like, all right, can they break the record? Well, they're going to be on the road a little bit later on in this month. The first opponents that they'll face are the New York Islanders, then they'll take on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then the Buffalo Sabres. I don't want to look too far ahead there. So for them, those are winnable games, but it's always a challenge going on the road, especially when you have to make that first trip out to the East Coast. Also, what I wanted to touch on here, oh boy, the Kraken just can't seem to find the net. I had one fan write into us. It seems like they've hit the crossbar a few times already. They're actually last in the NHL in scoring. They've only scored a total of 3 goals in 4 games. They're under 10% on the power play so far, and some other teams are as well. So, I mean, this is only through 4 games, right? I'm sure that they're going to start getting some bounces and some chances this way, their way. Of course, the forecheck is a big piece of that for the Seattle Kraken. We saw last year that was how they were able to generate so many even strength goals. And that just doesn't seem to be working for them on a consistent basis so far. On the other side of things, though, I looked at their goaltending this past year and I said, well, that's just not going to be enough to sustain in terms of like making a deep playoff run. And eventually that kind of, it kind of all fell apart in that second round against the Stars. But the Kraken so far, the goaltenders are showing up. Grubauer and Decord, that tandem is looking good so far. Also, Kyler Yamamoto getting the lone goal in that game last night for the Kraken. And I've liked his game so far from what I've seen. And it's cool seeing him score for Seattle, considering that he grew up on the other side of town in Spokane and played for the Chiefs in the WHL. All right, now let's head to our next topic. And again, thank you to everybody who's popping into our stream here. Just feel free to tag me if you have any questions. But we go to our next topic here, and Marc Andre Fleury with the Minnesota Wild playing perhaps his final NHL game in his home province of Montreal. And of course, Fleury, he's been a longtime fan favorite for just about anybody in the NHL for about 2 decades. Yeah, we just got a comment, speaking of the Kraken here, about Daniel Sprung being sorely missed. He's off to a good start with the Detroit Red Wings so far. So Marc Andre Fleury, he had himself a great game and helped the Minnesota Wild cruise to a 5-2 victory against the Canadiens. Kirill Kaprizov scored his first in very Kirill fashion from an awkward angle, roofing it over the goaltender. But yeah, the star of this game and the first star of this game was Marc Andre Fleury. And we'll have to take a look at his best save of the night as he was able to hold the fort down for Minnesota.
Stick of Evans, who tried to drop it back in the slot. Kovacevic in, and a kick save by Fleury. Unbelievable!
Yeah, the good old windmill save. That's very old school. One of the best kinds of saves that you'll see out there. And actually, the crowd, I believe, chanted Fleury after he had made that save. That's pretty awesome to see. You know, the Montreal fans out there, they always know how to show love to the other team, unless it's like the Bruins or something. But they really are one of a kind as a fan base. So I love seeing that. There was a standing O for Fleury as he was honored as the first star of the game. Standing ovation. I think he probably had a lot of family there. And he waved to the crowd in appreciation as the Wild come away victorious there in Montreal. So congratulations to Marc Andre Fleury, and we'll see some other great games like that where he gets honored in what could be, it's not definitively, but it could be his final season in the NHL. He's getting close to 40 now these days. All right. Now we move on to another return of sorts. So in this case, it was Pierre-Luc Dubois, who, of course, wanted out of Winnipeg for quite some time. And so he was able to get things going for the LA Kings as they routed the Winnipeg Jets by a score of 5-1. And as I just mentioned, that first goal came off the stick of Pierre-Luc Dubois just as the power play had expired. So take a look.
A lot of ozone time on this power play. It's coming to an end to Dubois, who centers. Jansen tight. Save. Score. Dubois on the rebound.
Yeah, so Dubois, his first on the season, his first as a Los Angeles King. Other goals came from Trevor Moore. He added a pair. Arthur Kaliev and Philippe Danault with their first of the season. Mark Scheifele, in the losing effort for the Jets, scored his third. Speaking of which, things aren't looking particularly hot for the Jets. They've allowed 14 goals in their first 3 games, and certainly Connor Hellebuyck is a huge piece of the success for the Winnipeg Jets, but he hasn't gotten the help that he needs. So far, he has a minus 5.5 goals saved above expected. But yeah, looking back at Dubois, he did, as you could probably guess, he did get some boos out there as he took the ice and was he didn't let that exactly get to him as he channeled that into, I'll show you guys. I'll show you why you miss me. But anyway, the Kings able to get a victory there in Winnipeg. Another team that, this team, let's just say, is sticking it to just about everybody, as the Kings did to the Jets last night. And that's the Vegas Golden Knights. They had a Western Conference final rematch against the Dallas Stars last night. And the Stars, it looked like that they would come out victorious, but with just about 3 minutes left, it was William Karlsson scoring the equalizer, and ultimately one that helped guide the Vegas Golden Knights to victory. So we'll take a look at this tip-in from William Karlsson.
Deflection. Look at that, right off the mid-shaft as it goes past the right shoulder of Ottinger and William Karlsson.
I guess you could say maybe Heiskanen was out of position there. That's one of the few times when I find any defensive faults with him. But yeah, William Karlsson, one of the great finds from that expansion draft for the Vegas Golden Knights. And they would triumph ultimately 3-2 in a shootout. And, so far they're the only team that's 4-0. I mean, we'll see what happens with teams like Colorado that are 3-0. But the Knights have made this look really easy so far. Even though they've had some injuries, Zach Whitecloud, Alec Martinez, William Carrier, Petrangelo's been out for 2 of the games. Brett Howden had that 2-game suspension. But the Knights, they have stuck to their guns, really. And that it can come from anybody. The goals can come from just about anybody, as we've seen so far. And also the defense has just been particularly sharp. Haven't allowed a whole lot of chances outside of maybe the Seattle game. And this team looks particularly deadly. And, certainly the only guy they really lost in the offseason was Riley Smith. You can also count in there Phil Kessel. But this team, it's going to be, thankfully we have, 6 months to figure them out if you're an opponent, right? If you're a Stanley Cup contender. But so far they've really just showed very little in the signs of weakness. On the Dallas Star side, also, I wanted to point this out. Joe Pavelski scoring his 450th career goal. And guess what? That puts him in some great company. He becomes just the 7th American-born player to score 450 goals. And he is 39 years old, so it's going to get a little more challenging for him to possibly reach the 500 plateau. I would think that if he extends for one more year after this year with Dallas, he very well could do that. He plays with a lot of great talent on his line and certainly has been a real reason why the Dallas Stars have been able to make a deep run as they did last year and are a Stanley Cup contender, certainly. But one thing I always like to bring up here is Joe Pavelski. Could he finish as a Hockey Hall of Famer? I think a Stanley Cup certainly would help him in the sense that, Pavelski doesn't have any major awards other than that, although he has been a captain for several years. He played on Team USA in the Winter Olympics. Longtime Sharks fan favorite, and certainly his presence was missed as soon as he had left the organization for the most part. And with Dallas, just the way that he's ended his career, how he's played some of his best hockey as a Dallas Star. And actually, I do have a highlight of his goal as well. Again, the 450th goal in the career of Joe Pavelski. Yeah, it took a lucky carom there, but yeah, he scored that just off the faceoff. I know that we didn't have any audio there, but anyway, congratulations to Joe Pavelski in the losing effort and the Golden Knights for going 4-0 and just showing very few signs of letting up. All right, we got a few more topics to touch on here. The first one, we're going to be going back to the well here with Patrick Kane. So Frank Saravalli posted an article recently for Daily Faceoff, and he was talking about who he believes are the favorites to possibly land Patrick Kane, as Kane is coming off of a hip surgery. Won't be ready immediately, but could be back at some point in November. So per Frank Saravalli, the 3 teams that are the favorites, the ones that he believes will be the favorites, include the team that he was on last year at the end, the New York Rangers, his hometown team, the Buffalo Sabres, and also the Detroit Red Wings. So I think that, of course, one huge factor here is who's got the cap for Patrick Kane. His previous deal, he's not going to get anywhere near that salary, but he was making $10 million. So he does come at a cost. The Sabres right now have about $8.8 million in cap space per cap friendly. That's a hell of a lot. So they just by default have the most room for him. Although one can argue, well, I know that Jack Quinn is injured until like February, but the Sabres have all kinds of firepower at forward. Would they really need Patrick Kane? Maybe they want to have a little bit more of a veteran expertise as they challenge for a playoff spot and hopefully, break that drought of 12 years without making the postseason. Yeah, Jake, what's going on? Thanks for hopping in, man. Congrats to the Wild. So the Detroit Red Wings, one of the other favorites, have per cap friendly about $4.4 million in cap space. And, Yzerman has certainly been almost kind of enigmatic in the sense that he has brought in a lot of veterans over the past few months. And the Red Wings are actually maybe building something here, as we've seen a couple of convincing victories recently. The New York Rangers, though, who had Kane last year at the end, they're at just $675,000. So I don't know for sure how they're going to make that possible. I've talked about this with Rangers Central on YouTube. It's like, well, could they possibly work out a deal to send Barclay Goodrow somewhere? Of course, they would probably have to, deal some draft picks. It would be a salary cap dump. They need to get real creative if they want to court Kane again. With the Rangers last year in 19 games, Patrick Kane had 5 goals and 7 assists. And then he had a goal and 5 assists in the 7-game series against the New Jersey Devils. On the year in 73 games, Kane ended up with 21 goals and 36 assists for a respectable 57 points for a guy in his mid-30s. And yeah, I know he's not really adding all that much defensively to the conversation, So you do have to take that into consideration when you reform your forward lines. But it's going to be interesting as we get closer to November and Kane has the opportunity to come back from injury. All right. Oh, good. I didn't think I uploaded my or updated my banner. Speaking of injuries, we do have, unfortunately, an update that Kirby Dach is out for the season. He, of course, was sent into the bench on a hit from Jared Tenorti. Didn't really look like all that much to me. I'm going to replay that hit so that you know what I'm talking about right here.
It almost empties his penalty out.
Whoa, Jared Tenorti with a big hit on Kirby Dach, sent him right back into the Hawks bench.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Dach had torn his MCL and his ACL. So he's out for the year. Again, I didn't think too much about the hit. That seemed like a pretty routine play from the Hawks defender there, Jared Tenorti, this past weekend. And it's really unfortunate for Dach because, he just wants to play a full season in Montreal. Last season, he showed some signs of promise. He's still very young. I think he's still only 21 or if not 22. He had 58, in 58 games last season. He had 14 goals and 24 assists for 38 points. And you want him to develop some chemistry with some of the younger Montreal Canadiens forwards out there to help somebody like a Uri Slafkovsky. So I'm disappointed to hear the news, but of course I'm hoping for a speedy recovery from him. He's got so many more years ahead of him in the NHL, and hopefully this is something that he can recover from quickly, and he'll have a full offseason to do so as well. A guy who missed all of last season except for 8 games will come back to his team, and that is Josh Norris. He is set to return today against the Washington Capitals, and they'll definitely benefit for having him in the lineup. He's been scoring at nearly a point per game clip so far with the Senators in his career. Actually, you know what? I want to check the numbers on this, so just bear with me. Select Boy, thanks for hopping into the YouTube stream here. But yeah, Norris, his last full season with the Ottawa Senators was in 2021-22. Well, it wasn't even a complete season, but even so, in 66 games, he scored 35 goals, had 20 assists for 55 points. Plenty of weapons on the Ottawa Senators, but I think that they're going to love having him back in the lineup. So that's great for Josh Norris. Now, tonight, the Ottawa Senators will be taking on the Washington Capitals. There we go. Thank you for bearing with me here as I need to work on my segues. I am pretty new to doing this, so hope you don't mind. Anyway, so the Senators with Josh Norris back in the lineup will take on the Washington Capitals. The Sens come off back-to-back wins over the surprisingly decent Philadelphia Flyers. They look good so far from what I've seen. And congrats to Sean Couturier getting his first goal in about 2 years. So anyway, the Sens come off wins against the Flyers and the Tampa Bay Lightning by scores of 5-2 each. They'll be matched up against the Capitals team that got their first win most recently, a 3-2 shootout win against the Calgary Flames. And we only have one other game tonight on Wednesday. Thursday is going to be a pretty full slate. But the other matchup for Wednesday is the Penguins and the Red Wings, both coming in with records of 2-1. The Penguins most recently defeated also the Calgary Flames, and they also played the Washington Capitals and blanked them by a score of 4-0. And speaking of 4-0, that was the score of the Red Wings the Red Wings last game, a 4-0 shutout against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And before that, a convincing 6-4 victory against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So this team has been able to find ways to fill the net. And Alex DeBrincat has been part of that for them as they were hoping. Anyway, that's going to do it for this wrap up here. Let me know if you guys have any suggestions for what I can cover in future episodes. We'll see how things go here. And remember, you can always find us both on YouTube, Spotify, and also on Rumble. If you have any feedback, you can reach out to me over social media. I have some information about that in the description. And we'll be doing some more live streams, some play-by-play commentary throughout the season on YouTube. All right, guys. Well, I thank you for watching, and hopefully we can reconvene again soon. And hope you enjoy the rest of the week with some great NHL action ahead. All right, take care.